The call comes at 6:47 a.m. You're already on the subway, standing, one hand on the pole, coffee in the other. Your phone buzzes, it's a number you don't recognize. You don't answer. You'll learn later that was the wrong move. On Wall Street, you always answer, but you don't know that yet. Level 1, the analyst. You are 22 years old and you have never been this tired in your life. Your desk is on the 43rd floor of a building that costs more per square foot than your parents' entire house. You sit at the end of a row. Your monitor is smaller than everyone else's. That is not an accident. The hours are 7 a.m. to whenever they stop needing you. Last Tuesday, that was 2:30 a.m. You took a car home that the firm paid for, slept 4 hours, and came back. Nobody mentioned it. Nobody had to. Your job is to build models, discounted cash flows, comparable company analyses, pitch books that a vice president will present to a managing director who will present to a client, and at no point will your name appear anywhere. You are invisible. That is also not an accident. You make $110,000 base. That you thought that was a lot of money until you realize you're clearing roughly $18 an hour after taxes and hours worked. The guy who delivers lunch to the floor makes better margins. The work itself isn't complicated. It's just relentless. You update the same spreadsheet 4 times because someone senior changes their mind 4 times. You catch a formula error at 11 p.m. and spend 40 minutes deciding whether to tell your associate. You tell him. He says, "Good catch," without looking up. That's the closest thing to praise you'll receive this week. You don't socialize much. There's no time. And the people who have been here a year already seem older than they should be. There's something behind their eyes, a flatness that you don't understand yet. You think this is temporary. You think you're learning. Both of those things are true. Yeah, you just don't know what you're learning yet. Level 2, the associate. 2 years in, or you came straight from business school with $200,000 in debt and something to prove. Either way, you now manage analysts. That means you correct their work at midnight and try to sound calm when the model breaks 30 minutes before a client deadline. You have learned the language. EBITDA. Leverage ratios, IRR. You say these words in the same tone people use to discuss the weather. Your compensation is $250,000 all in if the year is decent. You spend most of it, rent in Manhattan, clothes that fit the part, dinners you didn't eat because you left before the entree arrived. You have started to understand the real hierarchy. It's not about titles, it's about who controls the client relationships. The managing directors own the clients. Everything else, your models, your decks, your late nights, is infrastructure. You are infrastructure, but you're starting to see the machine more clearly. You understand which deals actually make money and which ones exist to maintain a relationship. You understand that half of banking is theater. The pitch, the deck, the tombstone, all of it is a performance. The actual money moves in conversations you're not in the room for. You want to be in those rooms. Your associate class started with 12 people. 3 have already left. 1 to a startup, 1 to private equity, 1 who just disappeared quietly and nobody asked questions. You note the attrition without feeling anything particular about it. That's new. 6 months ago, you would have called the guy who left to check on him. You don't call. Level 3, the vice president. You are responsible for execution now. That means you manage the associates, managing the analysts, and you interface with clients enough that they know your name, but not enough that they trust you independently. Your managing director still controls everything that matters. You know this. He knows you know. There is an unspoken arrangement. You make him look good, he brings you along. You've done 4 live deals. Each one aged you. There's a specific kind of stress that comes from a $2 billion acquisition where the financing falls through at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. And you are the person who has to tell someone, and that someone is not the kind of person who receives bad news with grace. You handle it. You always handle it. That's why you're still here. Your social circle has narrowed considerably. Yeah, you have friends from before this life, but the dinners get canceled more often than they happen. They've stopped being angry about it. That's somehow worse. You have colleagues who drink with you after a deal closes. You call them friends. You know, in a quiet corner of your mind that you don't visit often, that they are not. But here's what nobody tells you about this level. You start to feel competent. Genuinely, specifically competent. You understand leverage. You understand what a company is worth and why the number is often a fiction that 2 parties agree to perform together. You understand timing and positioning and how to read a room. That competence feels like something. It's the first thing that's felt like something in a while. Level 4, the director. The title change is subtle. The shift underneath it is not. You now own relationships. Clients call you directly, not to chit-chat, to ask what you think, and what you think matters because you've been right enough times that your judgment has a value you can actually measure. That's a strange feeling, to be worth something specific. You're making $800,000 to $1.2 million depending on the year. You notice you've stopped converting prices into hours worked. Numbers don't mean the same thing anymore. A $600 dinner is a rounding error. That used to be a week of groceries. You remember that in the abstract, but it doesn't produce any feeling. You've started to think strategically about other people, not coldly, or at least that's what you tell yourself, but you are always running a quiet calculation. As to who is useful, who is a threat, who has leverage over whom. You don't remember when this started. It started quietly, and now it just is how you see rooms. Your managing director is good at his job, but you've started to see where he's weak. The technology sector, Shimwang, he doesn't understand it the way you do. You've brought in 2 clients he couldn't have gotten himself. You haven't said this out loud to anyone. You file it. Your marriage or your relationship or whatever version of personal life you've managed to maintain, it requires active maintenance now. You schedule it. You schedule it. You are aware of the irony. You do it anyway because you are good at execution, and execution requires deliberate attention to what matters. You think you still know what matters. Level 5, the managing director. It takes 10 years minimum, usually more. And one day you wake up and the institution needs you more than you need any single person in it. Your book of business is $40 to $60 million in annual fees. That number lives in your head at all times. It is your leverage, your insurance, your identity. You protect it the way other people protect their families. You travel constantly. London Monday, Houston Thursday, back to New York for a Saturday breakfast meeting because the client is only available then and you don't have the option of unavailability. Your assistant manages your calendar and your calendar manages your life. The two have become the same thing. You've made real money now, not aspirationally wealthy, actually wealthy. You have accounts you've stopped tracking closely. Y'all, that would have seemed impossible to you at 22. Now it just seems like accounting. But something has happened to time. It moves differently. Days disappear. A quarter ends and you look up and you weren't there for it. You were physically present for events, dinners, deals, board meetings, but you weren't there the way you were there for things when you were young. There was a weekend in your mid-30s when you went to a friend's wedding in Nantucket and you actually felt time pass slowly. That hasn't happened since. You fired people, 3 analysts, 1 associate who was stealing, a VP whose drinking became a liability. You did it cleanly, without drama, and then you went back to your desk. You think about them occasionally, mostly the analyst who cried. You've decided that was the right call. I'd say you've made a lot of decisions you've decided were right. Below you, someone is watching what you do. They're filing things quietly. You know this because you did it once. Level 6, the partner level power broker. There is no official title for what you are now. That's part of it. You're a senior MDA with cross-divisional authority. You sit on internal committees that allocate capital, approve hiring at the VP level and above, and quietly decide which business lines get resources next year. You don't announce these decisions. You make them in conversations, over coffee, in the margins of other meetings. You have a different relationship with the institution now. You don't work for the firm in the way a normal person works for an employer. The firm is partly a vehicle. You use it, it uses you. The arrangement is symbiotic and everyone understands this and nobody says it. There are people who've been here longer who resent you. There are people coming up who want what you have. You spend a non-trivial amount of energy managing both. Your clients are no longer just companies. Some of them are sovereign wealth funds, government entities, billionaires with complex family office structures. These conversations happen in places that don't appear in your calendar. You've learned to exist in the space between institutions, where the real leverage lives. You've done things inside the letter of the law that you wouldn't explain to a journalist. You know where the lines are because you've spent 20 years watching people miscalculate them. You don't miscalculate. That's your edge. Your children are teenagers now. One of them told you recently that they want to go into finance. You didn't say what you thought. You said you'd support whatever they chose. Later, alone, you sat with that for a long time. You didn't reach a conclusion. You moved on to the next thing. That's always the move. Level 7, the untouchable. You have built something that runs without you being in the room. You have junior partners who execute. You have relationships so deep and so old that the business flows through loyalty, not pitching. You stopped pitching 3 years ago. The last time someone asked you to prepare slides for a client meeting, you looked at them for a long moment and they understood and it didn't happen again. Your compensation last year was $22 million. You didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate against. The number confirmed what you already knew. You are in a different category. Categories don't produce joy, they produce obligations. You've survived 2 regulatory inquiries. One involved practices that were standard at the time and would not be standard now. The other was a misunderstanding that cost $4 million in legal fees to make into a misunderstanding. You don't think about either of them. You have learned the discipline of not thinking about specific things, and you've gotten very good at it. Your network is its own currency. You know the right people at the Fed, at Treasury, at 3 major sovereign funds, at 2 technology companies whose boards you sit on. You know things before they're public, not insider information. You've always been surgical about that, but context, mood, direction. You understand what's coming because you understand who's deciding it. The isolation is structural now. It's not loneliness exactly. You have people around you at all times, assistants, colleagues, advisors, but there is a specific kind of conversation you haven't had in years. About the kind where someone tells you something you don't want to hear. The kind where someone doesn't need anything from you. You've begun to understand how much you miss it, quietly, the way you miss things you don't allow yourself to pursue. You are almost at the top. Almost is its own specific weight. Level 8. The architect. You are not on any list. You don't give interviews. Your name appears in news coverage the way weather systems appear. As context, as background, as the thing that explains why other things happen. You are 49 years old, or 55, or 61. And it doesn't matter because time works differently for you now and has for a long time. You manage, directly or indirectly, $200 billion in capital across a structure so distributed that no one person understands all of it except you. That's not an accident. Opacity is architecture. You built the opacity the same way you built everything else. Deliberately, carefully, with patience that other people interpreted as restraint and was calculation. Your mornings are quiet, you wake at 5, you read. Physical newspapers, still, because there's information in what they choose to present that you don't get from screens. By 6:30, you've already had 2 conversations that will shape something material before noon. By 9, you are in a car or a plane or a room where what gets said determines what gets built or broken somewhere far away. You have made $600 million over your career. You have given a meaningful portion of it away, strategically, to institutions and causes that give you proximity to power. Philanthropy at your level is not charity. It is positioning. You are clear-eyed about this. Clarity is a form of integrity you've maintained when other forms became inconvenient. The people who fear you don't know your name. They feel the effects of your decisions the way you feel a current underwater, as movement without visible source. You have restructured companies in ways that eliminated thousands of jobs. You made those decisions analytically. You have not lost sleep over them in a way you can identify. What you have lost is harder to name. A version of yourself that would have lost sleep, that would have felt the weight of that would have needed to. You sit in a room sometimes, your home in Connecticut, or the apartment in London, or the floor of an office tower that your firm owns, and you understand that you have won by every metric you set when you were 22 years old, standing on the subway, coffee in one hand, pole in the other. You understand that those were the wrong metrics. You don't regret the life. Regret requires an alternative path you could have taken, and you don't believe you could have taken a different one and still been yourself. But what you feel is more like recognition. This is what it costs. You paid it. The invoice was submitted gradually, across decades, in small deductions you agreed to without reading the terms. And now the account is settled and you can see clearly what the total was. There is no one to tell this to. That's not self-pity. It's just the structural reality of where you are. The game continues without requiring your participation. That's how you know you've won. It's also how you know something else. Something you don't put into words. You don't put it into words. Somewhere in a city, in a building that costs more per square foot than most people's houses, on a floor that smells like recycled air and fresh coffee and low-grade anxiety, there is a 22-year-old at a small desk with a small monitor. He is building a model. He thinks the hours will ease up eventually. He thinks the work will be recognized. He thinks he understands what he's walking into. He has looked at the people above him and told himself he'll be different. He won't, but he'll be something. The subway doors close behind him every morning and he arrives at that desk and he opens that spreadsheet, and somewhere far above him, in a room he doesn't know exists, decisions are being made about things he can't imagine yet. He will imagine them one day. By then, he will have stopped noticing what it costs to get there. Yet the door closes, it always closes, and the floor is already full of people who thought they were the exception.